Okay, children, so the second graph. Okay, so the second graph, you can see I have actually already prepared the table here to save up time. Okay, so the x values are from -3 to +3, so you can see I've drawn from -3 to +3, and then you can see how I have constructed the table, children, because we really need to save time, because if I go to do the entire thing, it will take one full video. So now I need you to I want to teach you how to actually answer questions, right? So we need to answer these questions, right? So what I want you to do in here is, children, so you can see I made the x square. Always when you have this, we always make the x square table now, right? So you know how we take x square, we square these values, right? So you'll be listening to the previous videos. If you've been listening to it carefully, attentively, you know exactly I was explaining how I got this. So I don't want to explain in each and every video what I'm doing, right? So you should pay attention in the first videos and get the method. Okay, then the next one we do is we look at this equation and we build it methodically. We build this equation methodically over here. So -1x square, you can see it's actually minus x square over here, right? So it's just minus x square. So you can see that I've put a -1 over here so that it makes us easier to understand. So it looks like x square is multiplied by -1. So what you do here is, these are your x square values and you multiply all of them by -1, right? Then you have a +5. So obviously the +5, you just put it, and then y is equal to -1x square plus 5. So -1x square plus 5 is these two columns, right? These two rows. So you take those two rows and you add those two values and actually fill it. So you know how we fill it. So -9 plus 5. So you can see here when you're adding it, there are more minus marks than plus marks. So they take the difference. 9 and 5 difference is 4, and give the sign of the bigger number. So you can see there are more minus marks, therefore -4. Here -4 plus 5. So the difference is in between these two is 1, and then give the sign of the higher number. So +1. -1 plus 5. The difference in between these two is a 4, and it's the bigger number is a plus, so it's a +4. 0 plus 5 is +5. -1 plus 5 is difference is 4, and give the sign of the larger number +4. So likewise you can fill all of these things. You can see how it's done, right? And now it's time to mark the coordinates. So for the coordinate axis also, I chose for x axis we'll take 5 squares as 1 unit, and y axis we'll take 5 squares as 1 unit. So if you, I think in your graph book you might have plenty of space, so you can actually take a lot more space and draw it actually. So here, because of the screen size, I have to keep it to this minimum. So I think you can take 10 squares and draw, and it will occupy the entire graph space. So the first coordinate we have, the coordinates are up and down over here. -3 comma -4. So mark the coordinates. -3 comma -4. The next coordinate is -2 comma 1. -2 comma 1. The next coordinate is -1 comma 4. -1 comma 4. Next coordinate 0 comma 5. So x is 0, y is 5. Next coordinate 1 comma 4. Next coordinate 2 comma 1. The next coordinate 3 comma -4. Right, so 3 comma -4. Right, so then let's draw the graph. So I draw it smoothly. Okay, so draw a smooth curve. Okay, so over here, Okay, so that's what we have over here, children, something like this. So this is the graph. Okay, so please make sure you draw it neatly. Okay, so now I think you drawn around how many graphs? So when you look back, so you can see here these are the graphs we drew on the previous videos, right? So we drew y equal 2x square plus 1, and then we drew so we drew these graphs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the questions. So I told you to leave some space, right? I think this is the first graph we drew, right, under this topic, y equal ax square plus b topic. So this is the first graph we drew, right? So now let's go to write the question. So I want you to turn back to that page and write the questions. So I told you I'm going to give you around so many questions, but for now I'll be giving you the same questions which we did earlier. So the first question you're going to write over here is the coordinates. So for example, the first one, the type of graph. So what's the type of graph? Select the type of graph. Number 2, the second one, coordinates of turning point. So I want you to answer these questions in, I think we drew around 5 graphs now. For each and every graph I want these questions answered. Okay, the next one, axis of symmetry. So leave space to answer these questions, right? So and the next one, minimum or maximum value of y. Okay, so let's answer these questions quickly, children. So we know the type of graph means either it's a minimum or a maximum. So I was explaining you in the earlier videos how we identify. So you can first either look at this graph. So obviously when you look at this and when you see this downward U shape, so it's called a minimum, right? So the type of graph is a minimum. Okay, so or else the other way of identifying is, I told you look at the ax square, you look at the a value, the x square. So if your x square is a positive x square, it's a minimum. I was telling that also, right? So if you have a positive x square, that means it's a minimum. If you have a negative x square, that means it's a maximum. So that is also another way of identifying, actually without drawing the graph. So we'll come to that. I think we have that table, so we'll come to that table also. So currently what I want you to do is I want you to do it by looking at the graph. So looking at the graph, it's a minimum. Coordinates of turning point, children. So turning point is what? The place where it turns. Can you see this is the turning point? So this is the turning point. Okay, so what's the turning point coordinate? So look at the coordinate here, children. The coordinate x coordinate is 0, y coordinate is 1. So the turning point coordinate is 0, 1. Okay, then the axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, children, that's the symmetric line, right? So you can see here once again, the axis of symmetry has not changed from what we did earlier, right? So you can see here still the axis of symmetry is the y-axis, right? You can see here it's exactly going in the middle of the graph is exactly in the y-axis. Therefore the axis of symmetry, I told you y-axis is called the x equals 0 line. So then therefore your axis of symmetry is what? X equals 0. So you must write x equals 0, children. And then minimum or maximum value of y. So in here, do we have a minimum or maximum value, children? So if your graph type is a minimum, then you are going to have a minimum value. So you have to cut out the inappropriate word. So here we don't have a maximum, we have the minimum. So when they give you like this, you have to choose the correct word. So minimum value of y. What's the minimum value of y? So you go to your y-axis. Here this is your y-axis. Minimum value is because it's a minimum graph, you have a minimum y value, so come down to the minimum y value. So what's the smallest y value that you can go in your graph? You can see it's 1. You don't go below 1. The graph doesn't go below this 1. So then your minimum y value is 1. So minimum y is 1. Okay, children, so for now I want to write these 4 questions and answer because you have plenty of space, right? So you have plenty of space. So do the same thing for the other graph as well. So the same questions. The first one, okay, so the first one, type of graph. The second one, coordinates of turning point. Third one, axis of symmetry, right? Third one, axis of symmetry. And fourth one, maximum or minimum y value. So you have to choose the appropriate word. So looking at this once again, it's looking at this graph shape, immediately we know it's a minimum. The type of graph is a minimum. Coordinates of turning point, this is your turning point. So what's the turning point? Once again, that's also 0, 1, right? X value is 0, y value is 1. Axis of symmetry, children, doesn't change in this entire lesson. Actually, it's gonna be the y axis. So axis of symmetry is x equals 0, right? So that's the place where your graph is symmetric. So axis of symmetry is gonna be x equals 0. Minimum or maximum y value. So y value, so here what value do we have? Minimum or maximum? So you can see it's a minimum graph. So in a minimum graph you will have a minimum y value, so you can cut off the max part. So minimum y value here, children, so minimum y value you have here is 1. So minimum y value we have here is 1. Okay, so it's quite easy, children. Okay, so similarly I want you to do the same thing for the other graphs as well. Okay, so in these graphs also, now you can see in this graph that we drew. Okay, so they actually asked this question in the exercise of same turning point, maximum or minimum value. So you can answer. Now in this graph type, this you can see this is the other side. So this is a maximum graph, or you can see, if you observe here, your x could be negative, right? So if you get a graph in this shape, you should observe a negative x square. So look at this here, we have a minus x square. Can you see in the graph? So it's a the type of graph is a maximum. Axis of symmetry is, children, you can see in this graph also it's directly symmetric about the y axis. Therefore axis of symmetry, y axis means this line is called x equals 0. Okay, so this line is called x equals 0. And then coordinates of turning point, so you can see here the turning point. So coordinates of turning point, x coordinate is 0, y value is 5. Okay, and maximum or minimum of 5. So here do we have a maximum or minimum value? This is a maximum graph, so you have a maximum y value. So your maximum y value is, so look in this axis, the maximum, the highest y value you reach here is 5. So maximum y value is 5. So I don't want you to mark like this in your diagram, children. I want you to write it neatly. Now you saw the method I was doing in the previous two graphs, right? So I want you to implement the same method. Write the questions nicely and write the answers properly. Okay, so do it nicely. Write the questions and make it neat. Okay, so I want to see perfect graphs, and I want to see the other side. The questions are there perfectly. Okay, so there should be no mistakes, and there shouldn't be, how do you say, if you have any misunderstanding in what I'm saying, I want you to to talk to me and clear it out. Okay, because at the end of the day, when we come to see the books, it needs to be properly done. I need to see all the graphs. Okay, so we've done so far around, I think from the beginning we drew 5 graphs, and now I think we drew another 4 graphs over here, right? 4 or 5. So anyway, altogether maybe 9 or 10 graphs are there. So that means 10 pages, 10 full graph pages are occupied, right? So that means I want to see all the tables on the right hand side, or in the single rule side, and the graphs on the left hand side. So each page should have only one graph. Okay, each page contains one graph, and each single rule side has only one table, and then below the table you are writing the questions that I'm giving. So you can see I gave you 4 questions, so that those 4 questions should be there in all of these graphs. Okay, so even in this one, so I think I drew another one over here, right? So this is 2x square minus 4. So I want even, right? So all those questions should be written and done properly. Okay, so these this when I look at your books, I will know whether you have been listening to me properly or not. Okay, so please make sure that there will be no that you don't misunderstand, and if you have a problem, you can always ask. Okay, so in the next video I will be tables actually without going to sketch the graph. Okay, children. Okay, so thank you.